Coach Bryan Harsin is officially returning to Auburn as the head coach in 2022. There's been a crazy saga that's been going on for the past month and really stretches all the way back to December if we're being honest. But today, outgoing President Jay Gouge of Auburn, released a statement confirming that Bryan Harsin will be the head coach of the football team for Auburn University going into the fall of 2022. So nothing has changed. But a lot has happened in this time. So I want to go back through and walk you through the full timeline of this Bryan Harsin coaching saga. I'm sure I'll leave a few things out, but I'm going to do my best. And I want to start all the way back on December 12th, 2021. On December 12th, this is when Bo Nix announced that he was entering the transfer portal. Shortly after that, he did announce that he was going to Oregon. But during this time, there was a lot of speculation about who the next quarterback would be. We didn't know. We still had TJ Finley. But a lot of fans were upset about Bo Nix leaving. But there was also a huge contingent that was happy he was not going to be at Auburn anymore. But that is one of the first things that started this ball rolling as far as people questioning Bryan Harsin and whether he was the right guy for the job. January itself was really crazy for Coach Harsin and Auburn University because we saw a slew of coaching resignations. And that started on January 7th with defensive line coach Nick Eason resigning and eventually going to Clemson. On January 22nd, one of the more surprising resignations was defensive coordinator Derek Mason resigning. The reason this one was surprising is initially he announced he was resigning because he wanted to step away from football, but later we found out he actually went to Oklahoma State to be defensive coordinator. And it was very odd that this was happening because this was a lateral move. And you would think this would not be a good move for him because he's moving from Auburn to Oklahoma State, which is seen as not as good of a program. And later on, and I'll get to this, we found out that it's actually even more surprising because of the pay he was going to be taking. But I'll get to that in a minute. On January 28th, Zach Hill of Arizona State, the offensive coordinator at Arizona State, resigned. The reason this is important is Zach Hill was believed to be the front runner for the offensive coordinator job at Auburn. But amid an NCAA investigation that was swirling around recruiting violations or recruiting issues, we found out that this might have been a good thing, or it actually was a very good thing, because he was mixed up in some stuff we did not want to be involved in. So the vetting process worked out well, and we did not end up with Zach Hill as the offensive coordinator at Auburn. Instead, we had Austin Davis, who was the quarterback coach from the Seattle Seahawks. But little did we know, a couple days after this resignation from Zach Hill, we would get some big news that would shock most Auburn fans and really get this ball against Bryan Harsin rolling a little faster. On January 31st, offensive coordinator Austin Davis announced his resignation from Auburn. He would no longer be the offensive coordinator, and he'd only been on the job for about, I believe, 6 weeks. It was not a long time at all. So this came as a big surprise because he barely stepped foot on campus. Rumors began to swirl around why he would leave Auburn so quickly. Most of those rumors settled on a few things. We heard Greg McElroy say that he was unfit for the job, and if he did not resign, he was going to be relieved of his duties. We also heard that Austin Davis did not realize how much was actually involved with recruiting and therefore did not want to do the job. He just wanted to be offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach, but he did not want to do all the extra work that went in with recruiting. At least that is what the rumor is. But that resignation of Austin Davis really sent things into a tailspin for Bryan Harsin because at that point he'd had about 18 players leave the team and then a slew of coaches. I can't remember what it's up to now, like 4 or 5 coaches leave, and it just does not look good for him. February 2nd is where things really start getting bad for Coach Harsin. During the week of February 2nd to about February 7th, this is when Coach Harsin went on vacation to Mexico during that time. His assistants were on vacation. and then the Board of Trustees appointed a new president. But I want to break down a few key events that happened during that week, and we'll start with National Signing Day on February 2nd. On National Signing Day, February 2nd, 2022, a few key things happened. The first one is that Auburn got the number 18 recruiting class. By some fans, that was seen as all right, nothing to be too scared about. By some, it was seen as abysmal. I don't know where you stand on that, but 18 is not as good as we want, but it's not the worst thing in the world. The next thing that happened is that Auburn missed out on 5 big recruits that they were hoping to get at least 1 or 2 for this class, but they missed out on all 5 of them. And then the biggest hit of the day came when Javarius Johnson, wide receiver for Auburn for the 2021 season, he announced that he was entering the transfer portal. This was a big hit for Auburn because they'd already lost Kobe Hudson, they'd already lost D-Rob, so we're already thin at wide receiver as far as experience goes, and so this was a problem. February 4th is where everything hit the fan. This is where some allegations came out against Bryan Harsin. Harsin made the comment that any allegations against his character or attacking his character were just not true. He used his own language for that, but he felt personally attacked, and he was personally attacked, but he addressed that right away. But that did not stop the slew of problems that were going to come immediately after these initial allegations. On this day, Coach Harson did make a statement saying that he was the right man for the job, but we also had some statements made by players. 2 of those notable statements were made by Kobe Hudson and Lee Hunter, who both left the team. There was an Instagram live that went on for a while, but there were some things that came out of it. But they also made 2 comments. The comment made by Kobe Hudson said that he referring to Bryan Harsin, Coach Harsin was a dictator. The other comment made by Lee Hunter said that he treated, once again he being Bryan Harsin, Coach Harsin treated the players like dogs. Later in the day on February 4th, we also found out that Alan Green met with the football team. We didn't hear exactly what was said in that meeting, but the gist of it is that he was trying to reassure the team and basically say that they needed to continue with business as usual. On February 5th, we saw some people coming to Harsin's defense. The one that I noticed the most, we had a comment from Chandler Wooten, but then we also had Chandler Wooten's mom coming out and showing big support for Coach Harsin and talking about how he helped Chandler be a better man. And that was a big deal because that is from a player's parent. And we'd heard some negative comments made by Smoke Monday about how Coach Harsin didn't even know his mom's name and basically didn't care about the players. So from those personal attacks saying that Harsin could not be personal or he lacked in those people skills, this was a big deal because it showed that a player and a parent did support the coach. And this is something that Coach Harsin very much needed. On February 7th, we saw 2 key pieces of news come out. One was a rumor, one was actual news. The rumor that was started by fans and some writers was that Hugh Freeze was the number 1 target for Auburn's next head coach. Obviously, that is not true as we know today. The second thing that came out was a piece of news that made the Derek Mason situation even more concerning. That is because we found out how much he was going to get paid at Oklahoma State. He agreed to take a $400,000 pay cut to leave Auburn as defensive coordinator and go do the same job at Oklahoma State. That does not look good for Coach Harsin. Later that same day, Auburn University put out a very vague statement basically saying that they were opening an investigation and looking into things and taking accounts of all parties involved. On February 8th, Auburn University made a policy change that many people thought was directed at Bryan Harsin, and it had to do with if someone was not, like a coach, if they were not following, if they were not cooperating with an investigation, they could be fired because, like in Harsin's contract, if they don't follow school policy, that is a reason to be fired for just cause. On February 9th, we found out that Zach Etheridge was a key candidate, a top candidate for the defensive back coach position at the University of Georgia. As of today, he's not taken that, so he could still be a top candidate, but I'm hoping that that will not change, because that would just be another thing that would not look good for Coach Harsin. On February 10th, we had a lot of drama because Coach Harsin attended the SEC meeting, the SEC coaches meeting in Birmingham. The reason there was a lot of drama with this is we didn't know what was happening with Coach Harsin, but he also had to sneak in to this event. He had to sneak into this meeting. There were three entrances into it. There was one on a walkway, there was the front door, and there was media crowded around both of them. But Harsin didn't go in either one. He actually snuck into an unmarked doorway in an alleyway. So he did have to kind of sneak around to get into this meeting, but eventually he did. He handled his business that he needed to handle for the meeting, and then he did have a little bit of an awkward moment as he was leaving and going back to his car. And finally, we get to today, February 11th, and we see some closure in this whole event. And that's because Auburn University released a statement confirming that Bryan Harsin is the head coach at Auburn University and will be the head coach going into next football season. Bryan Harsin released a statement talking about how this was one of the worst weeks of his coaching career, and I can see why. It's been quite the ride for him, and I can't imagine. Had to be an absolute nightmare, especially he was on vacation trying to spend time with his family and then having to deal with all this back at home in Auburn. I just can't imagine what this was like for him. But he released his statement. He gave his thoughts on it. But at the end of the day, what do we know? Coach Harsin stood up to the boosters, and in this situation, boosters 0, Harsin 1. So regardless of what you think or how you feel about Coach Harsin, this could signal a change that we've needed at Auburn for a very long time. And it could be that we're finally seeing some power going back to the coaches and going away from the boosters. If there's any more developments in this situation, I will let you know. But for now, it seems like we've finally seen an end to this Bryan Harsin coaching saga. Thank you for watching this one, and I hope you'll watch the next one as well. As always, I appreciate you guys. War Eagle.